Welcome back, and you okay, babe? You okay?
Oh, cracking.
Having a smashing time. So, you might have noticed that we're all in pink. We've got pink cups, we've got pink tops, we've got pink snacks. It's very pink. We're going Wear It Pink, and the reason for that is because it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Wear It Pink Day this year is the 18th of October, so Breast Cancer Now always do Wear It Pink events. We can come on to that a little bit later because it was something that I held in 2019. I'll put some photos up for you.
Yes, we need to see them.
Today's episode is about raising awareness around breast cancer, hence a lot of pink items. So 1 in 7 women are getting diagnosed with breast cancer, so we're going to talk a little bit more around signs and symptoms, importance of screening, and some personal stories as well. We will put trigger warnings in there for you, so don't worry about listening along.
So first of all, we just wanted to talk about knowing your own breasts. So I think it's really important that as women we should be checking our breasts regularly. So kind of, I think the recommendation is once a month, but if you can do it more often, then that's even better.
No harm in doing it more
There's
often.
there's definitely no harm in doing it more often. Get to know them. Obviously, sometimes your partner is the person that might notice a change. So it's looking for anything different in your breast that you're not used to. So it might be something that you wouldn't typically class as a sign of breast cancer. So inverted nipples, you know, all of a sudden that changes.
If it's a big change. Yeah.
If it's a big change.
I will say, before we get into all the particular signs and symptoms, if you do suffer from health anxiety and it'll be difficult to listen to and you feel as though it might be something that impacts you quite a lot or something that you'll obsess over, do be conscious listening to this next bit of the podcast. If it's easier to read through it, then do that. And obviously if you are concerned and you would rather speak to it with a healthcare professional, you are more than welcome to.
Okay. So biggest things to look out for is lumps and swelling. I just want to point out that not every lump is breast cancer.
No.
There's a lot of reasons that women have lumps in their breast, and hormones play
On your
a massive.
armpits as well, if
Yeah.
you do get it's your lymph nodes, so if you are poorly, sometimes as in, acutely poorly with a cough or cold, you can get some
swelling lymph nodes, as you would in your neck. Sometimes you get them in your armpits. Obviously, that said, if it doesn't go away after you start to feel better, then I would advise you to go and get that checked out. So any change in the skin on the breast, and like I just said, nipple changes, anything that's out of your ordinary, and all of a sudden it's a sudden change. So rashes, unusual discharge from the nipple. Those can all be signs of breast cancer. That doesn't mean you have breast cancer, because there can be other reasons for this. So that's obviously what worth bearing in mind. So if you notice a change, you're concerned, I would advise you to go to your GP to get checked out. Usually if there's a change in the breast or a lump, there's a 2-week referral system at the GP. So if it's suspected breast cancer, they do refer you fast under a 2-week wait. That doesn't mean that they necessarily think it's breast cancer.
No.
It's just a very quick way of ruling breast cancer out, and it's a really great system that we have. That 90% of people are seen within 2 weeks to get that check done.
So if the GP does refer you for a 2-week wait, typically you will have a mammogram. We can't speak from experience. We're not of age, because typically people over the age of 50 get called up for 3 yearly mammograms. So when you have a mammogram, what they have to do is kind of squeeze the boob tissue between 2 plates so that they're able to picture what's going on inside, so they can really get a good idea.
So it can be painful.
It can be no, I wouldn't say painful. I think it's more described as uncomfortable, but manageably uncomfortable. Similar to your smear test, people find that uncomfortable, but very manageable.
It's not like a sharp pain.
No,
it's just
you're not going to be in agony. It's definitely
pressure, I suppose.
Yeah, pressure, like a pressure, and I think the idea of the fact that it's being pushed together sounds a lot worse than it is. Obviously, I don't know personally, but everyone that I've spoke to has said actually when they got there, it was a lot better than they expected. It weren't half as bad as they'd kind of built it up in their head. A little bit of discomfort, but it was over really quickly, and it did exactly what it was supposed to do, and that is to identify if there's any lumps there, or if they need to have a biopsy of any kind.
And I think sometimes that short 5 minutes of pain can save you
It's
a
always
lot
better to know.
longer down the
Yeah.
line. Even if you've got some cells that the consultant might be a little bit concerned about, it's better to get it diagnosed earlier rather than later on down the line.
Yeah.
Because it's important to say that there is higher survival rates of breast cancer if it's diagnosed early on in the process.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
9 out of 10 ladies with breast cancer live if diagnosed through screening. So the importance of going for mammograms, taking up that opportunity when you ask for screening is life changing.
Mhm.
And I can completely understand anxiety around that, around it's uncomfortable, it's not something you want, obviously you're taking off your clothes, that might feel vulnerable for you, but obviously the health professionals who are conducting the mammograms, they've seen it all, babe, so please don't worry about, you know, taking off your clothes, getting your boobs out, because it's very important to do so.
And I must also add, so when we were speaking to some of the breast screening nurses, that ladies who, for religious reasons, cannot expose their breasts, there are things in place where they can keep themselves
Not modest.
so they don't actually have to expose any skin. So the take-up within the Muslim women community is much lower because women have a preconception that they must expose their breasts.
Yeah.
Whereas speaking to the nurses, you don't have to.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, which
Which
really
is worth knowing,
amazed
isn't it?
me.
'Cause
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
It really amazed me. So they're able to keep ladies or women modest and not actually exposing any of their skin, but still preventing or trying to
Still
detect
doing the mammogram.
if they have any kind of cancerous cells within the breast, which I thought was fantastic.
Mm.
So it's not just for, it really does fit for every kind of ethnic group.
You know around how would you go about getting a mammogram if you've got breast implants?
So with breast implants, they have a lot of different moulds that can fit to, there's loads of different moulds that are shaped towards different sized breasts, different fillings, because with squishing the natural breast tissue, if somebody does have an implant, that could cause the implant to burst or, to move within the breast tissue. So they have special moulds that they're able to still do the mammogram and still perform it, even with women who do have breast implants. So if you're sat there and you're thinking, I can't have a mammogram because I've got boob implants, don't feel like that. These screening clinics have so many different types of moulds, and they can find a mould that fits around your breast so that you're still entitled to get this screening.
Thank you for that, because I had no idea.
No, I didn't
And
know.
I think if I had implants or had a religion where I was worried about getting boobs out, they would be very rational fears about getting a mammogram. So thank you for that.
While we're on the subject of myth busting, I do think it's really important to point out that women aren't the only people who are susceptible to breast cancer. Men also are susceptible. However, the rates are much lower. But it's always important to remind men in your family that also to check their breasts.
Yeah, it's usually a lump in the chest area.
Yeah.
For men.
And armpits as well. Similar like lymph nodes if they're
similar things to look out for.
Yeah,
but obviously
absolutely.
it differs on body type.
Yeah. So, it's always important to just make sure that, the men in your life are aware that, they also could have breast cancer if they are finding
Yeah.
Even
It's
though
not,
it's
not
much
completely
lower.
ruled out. So I think that is a myth around breast cancer only being something that women can get. So what age is it typically that you'll be asked to go for a screening, to go for a mammogram?
So I think in the UK at the minute, depending on which county you're in, it's 50 years old.
Okay.
So anyone coming up to their 50th birthday will tend to get their first invite, and then after that it's every 3 years. However, when you turn 70, they don't actually send you the reminders anymore. I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's because the take-up potentially is not as high as the 50 to 69s. But when you get to 70 and people aren't getting reminded, people just automatically assume, I don't need to.
You're not eligible.
I'm not
maybe,
eligible.
because you're not
Yeah,
getting invited.
yeah, we're not being tested.
Okay.
So it's really important that if someone that you know, either a parent or a grandma who is, or an auntie over the age of 70, anyone, yeah, absolutely, anyone. So if they're over 70, they are still entitled and eligible to go for a mammogram. However, you do have to contact the local screening clinic. Obviously this differs depending on the area. There's different numbers.
You have to call up and self-book because actually you won't get the invite anymore. Whereas when you're between 50 and 69, you'll get a letter, I assume.
I
or
think so, yeah,
an
or a
invite.
text message or an email.
Yeah.
There's some kind of communication. However, obviously when you turn 70, that communication stops. But it's really important to stress that, you know, find the number for your local area because you are still eligible for a mammogram.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Trigger warning, the next section we are going to be talking about personal experiences or family members that have experienced breast cancer. So if this might be a cause for anxiety,
yeah, or
then,
just discomfort, then
yeah,
that's understandable.
then please just skip this part of the podcast because we don't want to, you know, cause any upset for anybody. So, Kate.
So, when I was 13, my mum was diagnosed with breast cancer. At the time it was a stage 4 aggressive breast cancer. She got incredible support. She then had chemotherapy and radiotherapy. At the time, for me as a daughter, it was very confusing. The only thing I could relate to was Sally from Coronation Street, who'd had breast cancer. So people being shown on TV is really important for awareness because it actually helped me to understand what was going on. There's obvious fears for me as a daughter. There's obvious fears that I'm thinking my mum's gonna die, and through speaking to my mum, when you are told that you have cancer, that's the thing that you think straight away. When you're told that word, it's like the world just stops, and all you think is those worst outcomes and how that's affecting you and how that's affecting your family. So I actually found it really difficult to talk about when I was that age. I didn't really speak to any friends and family. School was really supportive, and I remember the deputy head teacher at the time pulled me out of class one day and was like, do you want to come speak to me? And I was like, yeah, okay. Like, I was just like, what about? Because I was just kind of, I think that can be a coping mechanism sometimes. I don't think I spoke to people about it because I was just like, I don't know what to do with this information. And my mum is such a positive person. I think she probably did really protect me and my sister from feeling upset or anxious. She was always just like, I'll be fine, because she had that positive mindset. So yeah, the deputy head teacher pulled me out of class, and I took my friend with me. I took Becky with me, my friend, because I was just like, I don't know what he wants to speak to me about, but he was so lovely, so I didn't think I was in trouble or anything. I was just like, okay. And he's like, oh, like, I'm aware that of your mum's diagnosis, I just wanted to check in around how you were feeling. And I was like, oh, like, it was just such a shock to me. And Becky didn't even know, I hadn't even told her, so bless Becky. She was there like, oh, what is going on? And she was brilliant. She was a really beautiful support for me, and obviously it was upsetting, but I think sometimes you do just manage by blocking it out, and that's definitely what I did. And it's only been since I've been older, I think I've realised how much my mum went through and how much she did. So with chemotherapy, you lose your hair. Not only do you lose the hair on your head, you're losing eyebrows, you're losing eyelashes, you're losing leg hair, which you're not upset about the leg hair. But that can be really difficult, especially if you are someone who's very feminine, and my whole identity is my hair. Like, I would really struggle losing my hair, and I think that's okay to say that you do feel that loss of identity if you've lost your hair and your eyebrows and your eyelashes. Not only losing them in a cosmetic sense, losing them because your eyes are going to be watering more and you're colder, and just dealing with that can be really difficult.
Did your mum say much about how she felt at the time?
At the time, she was, like I say, very positive, I remember when she was going through radiotherapy, it can make, you're sort of told that it'll make your skin like blue or purple. And so she like actually painted herself blue. I think she was disappointed that it actually didn't make her blue. And she like painted herself blue and she was like, look, I look like a Smurf. Like, and she was just making
Light
light
of it,
making
yeah.
light of it, because obviously I was like 13, 14. And she just, she absolutely just powered through and cracked on. And my mum will say that now, that is what gets you through, that positive mindset. So speaking to people about it, finding positives, finding things to look forward to, just carrying on living, it could really, and it's completely understandable if it does affect you that way and it just is something that consumes you, but trying to challenge that and trying to carry on as positively as you can and just still enjoying life. Why should you not enjoy life? And, so she managed it, from what I remember, she managed it very well. She probably didn't, my mum's best friend Claire, she was really there for her around that time, and I remember she was there for her like when she was losing her hair, and she was a brilliant support, and I'll always remember her being there. It must have been really difficult, and I think she was very conscious for me and my sister about the impact on us, so she probably did put on quite a brave face about that.
So in terms, I know from people, parents and that have had breast cancer, they have to also be tested because some breast cancers are genetic.
Yeah.
So did you and your sister, have you ever had any kind of test?
So I was really worried because obviously around that time, I was 14, I was then looking at contraceptive pills, a bit later on, not when I was 14. But I was worried about taking the pill because I was thinking, and we didn't actually know at the time whether it was genetic, we didn't know the reason, so I asked my mum to ask her consultant, and he came back and said it's not genetic. But obviously I'm quite conscious that even though it's not genetic, your mum having breast cancer, I am conscious of it, so I will try and do things to be as preventative as possible. But we weren't told that there's any sort of increased risk in like BRCA gene or anything like that. But just for me consciously, like I'm not on any contraceptive because of that slight increased risk. And that's just how I feel about it. But no, actually,
Well, she's totally understandable.
To watch someone that inspires you and you've grown up with, to be able to then go through such a massive
to be vulnerable.
change. It must be such a worry, especially for a young girl.
Especially at 13 when there's so much going on in your life already.
Yeah.
And like you say, I think probably is that you probably didn't know how much your mum was affected at the time because your mum probably saw you as children and never wanted to kind of, give you that worry, I suppose. So, and it's really great that experience you remember in also a positive way, that you remember your mum being
just
positive
dressing as a Smurf.
and laughing and that's
she
such
was
a great thing.
She really did make light of things and just cracked on, and maybe we gave her motivation to do so. I don't know if it's that sort of work the other way around as well, that because you do, I think generally you do put on a front like for your kids. I mean, I don't have kids, maybe you can but
absolutely
you
would.
do, like if you're having a really
her,
awful time, you can almost just come home and maybe be grounded and present and have that sort of positive mindset. And that's the one bit when I asked my mum what she wanted us to mention today, she said, mention that your mindset is the most important thing. She'd said that she was invited to peer support groups afterwards, and she was like, I could just tell some people who were just very poorly from it because it had absolutely consumed them mentally, actually more than physically. She was like, if you can work on your mindset and do positive things, it really truly helps your recovery and your progress. So that's a sort of I think the bit of advice she would give. But she did say it is frightening. You're told that diagnosis and it is frightening. You do think you're going to die. So I think getting the clarity, speaking to professionals, we do as well. In primary care we do the reviews, we do cancer support calls. There are support services there. Locally, there's a support group called Terrible Titties.
I love that name. I love that name.
And then there's Pink Sisters and Misters as well.
I feel like, in general, across the UK, there is a lot of charities and support groups that help women and men who have gone through cancers,
Yeah.
and they don't get the recognition that what they should. They do fantastic work working with people who have been diagnosed or who are currently going through treatment, who have recovered and that still want to just kind of be in that support network.
It's a lifelong support though, isn't it? It's not just immediate,
Yeah.
You don't just have cancer, recover and then that's the end of it.
No.
It's a
No.
lifelong change,
Yeah.
having gone through that trauma.
Yeah. So Amy Dowden, who is a professional dancer on Strictly Come Dancing, she's recently been sharing her journey with breast cancer. Obviously she's quite young as well. She's written a book called Dancing in the Rain around her positive mindset around things. She's just an absolute icon. Absolutely love her. So if you do want to look at her story and just again, like I mentioned earlier, Sally from Coronation Street, because Sally from Coronation Street, she had breast cancer in real life as well, I believe.
Yeah.
So things like that I do think they resonate and it makes things understandable and relatable, and you were just never on your own. Whether you are a friend or family member with someone who's suffered breast cancer, or you've suffered breast cancer and you don't feel as though you want to speak to people within your circles, there are people online, there are people in the media who you can relate to and have that understanding. So we'll share that as well onto our stuff.
And I think in terms of wanting to check your own breasts, obviously for explicit reasons we can't show you how to check your own breasts on camera. However,
I'd love to.
Yeah, there are a lot of websites and
videos that can show you.
Yeah, so please, if you are interested and you're feeling that you don't really understand how you to check your breasts, get on YouTube, go onto the NHS website, go onto breast cancer awareness, find out exactly how to feel your breast and check for any kind of lumps or bumps or any differences, really.
Any changes. Yeah, it's always worth asking the question, and you are never alone, and you can always access support. Any questions, anything you wanted to ask us about, please feel free. We're very open, and if you've got any experiences that you would like us to share, we will do.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Love you. Check your boobs.
Check your boobies.
Check your boobies.
Check your boobies.